Hello and welcome back to a new episode. In this episode, I'm going to mod my Sega Genesis or Mega Drive Model 1 with HD on it. So in this time, I will install the triple bypass board, which is a very well-known mod for these devices, except that I have purchased a special version of it made by Zaxour. I'm gonna put all the links down below. This mod I really intend into not just restore or make the RGB signals better, but overall keep the original look and feel of the device. Meaning I will never replace the DIN connector, I will keep the same DIN connector, I will keep the composite output, whatever output it does originally. I'm just gonna keep all of them except for a better quality RGB overall, which is the thing that I am really interested into this. So please follow along the simple steps and you will restore your RGB flawlessly. Let's start by disassembling the console. After disassembling the shell itself, we're gonna disassemble the RF shield and the heatsink. The heatsink has the two power regulators connected to it via screws, and the heatsink itself is connected to the board by screws. You have to unscrew all that and make sure it is free and just take it out, because the work space that we are gonna do and work with is just under it or near it. Now we can see the CXA encoder chip by Sony, which encodes the RGB video, which is our target, as well as the VDP chip from Sega. We need to route the RGB signals from the VDP chip to the CXA chip, but overlapping or bypassing everything else in the board, which is the sole purpose of this mod. Now let's flip the board and see these three resistors here as well as the other resistor up there. We need to remove all of these resistors first in order to start working on our mod. Now after I removed them, I started to clean the area better with the solder wick. You may choose this type of cleaning or other type, but make sure everything is clean and nice, because we don't want to ruin this motherboard, which is already too old. Now on the same bottom side of the board, we see these three capacitors, which are AC coupling capacitors for RGB signals that's coming from the VDP chip down to the CXA chip. Okay, so now we need to wire three wires on the input side of these capacitors, which in themselves are connecting these signals to pins 2, 3 and 4 for RGB respectively. Notice that some models have the CXA chip rotated 180 degrees, so it's gonna be up to you to determine the orientation and correctly solder to the suitable pads. Now we are working on the VDP chip. We need to disassemble the RGB signals from the board to our motherboard and then to the CXA chip, which is what bypassing means. And now, since we have completed cutting the traces and we soldered wires to the RGB pads and pins of the VDP, now we wire them to what's called a relief board, as you see in this video. The relief board takes these signals on top of it and just routes them to the motherboard. Now, this relief board actually has ground planes inside. These ground planes will be connected via this ground pad to basically to ground. Now the EMI fields of the RAM traces underneath now will couple to this ground plane, not with the RGB pins, not with the RGB traces. So it will eliminate any chance of any field causing any coupling anymore. And the most important thing now is the C-Sync. The C-Sync is gotten from pin number 10 of the CXA chip. Again, you have to check the CXA chip and its orientation in order to figure out where is the pin number 10. Voltage is basically from the regulator. Go to the pin number 2 of the regulator, one of them, and just take the wire from there and make sure it routes nicely with the heatsink. The ground is basically you can get it from anywhere. And after getting all of these wires ready, now we can just place the motherboard wherever possible and suitable and just collect all of them there, and that will be it. For me, I found the best place to put it is on top of the heatsink itself. First step, of course, is to isolate it from the heatsink by putting some kind of tape or anything basically to make it like isolated. After that, I put the motherboard and start wiring these signals to wherever they need to be routed on the motherboard. I started by securing the motherboard with another piece of tape to isolate it from the top, which is important as we will see later. Then I trimmed and properly soldered the RGB inputs from the relief board, which is itself the RGB inputs from the VDP chip. Next is the C-Sync signal, which is the yellow wire in my case. And after that, of course, power and the ground. There is a jumper signal that you need to activate, which is the M1PU for my case. If you have another model of Sega Genesis, then you should look for documentation in order to know exactly which joints you should and you shouldn't activate. Now, as you see, I have started wiring the output from the motherboard to our CXA chip on the bottom of the board. Now, originally these motherboards are wired to an external DIN connector, and as you can see, I didn't use these output holes of the new DIN connector because I'm insisting on keeping mine and, as we said, original functionality. Now, this mod by Zaxour, or this version, has these three pads which are R0, G0, B0. You need to wire these pads directly to the CXA input caps below, as you can see in my video, instead of just wiring from the now empty DIN connector on the motherboard, because we are not using the external DIN connector attached. We are keeping our CXA chip active basically. So you can just do that and it will be done, and the mod will be just ready to work. Since the mod is now finished and ready to be used, I added another layer of insulating tape because this motherboard now will be touching the RF shield that we are gonna reinstall. So to avoid any problem, any issues that's gonna happen, I'm just gonna add another layer of insulating tape. You basically can use any other tape that you have, but I'm fine with just the regular one. Now, after I have finished the board and reassembled everything together, I tested the device and it works perfectly fine. The mod works absolutely fine and I see no jail bars. Even on a CRT, which gets the RGB signal from a SCART cable, then converted to component, which is the highest quality this CRT can offer, I saw the difference between before and after. So this mod works perfectly fine now, and I can see really crisp video and really worth the time and the money put into it. So I highly recommend that you do this mod, and all the links will be shown down below. Lastly, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and be sure to check thundertronics.net, which has my store in it. Coming soon there will be the Sega Saturn power supply as we promised, as well as a revised version of the Sega Dreamcast power supply. I'm also working on a PlayStation 1 power supply, as well as other projects here and there, so be sure to subscribe to the channel and share the video, as well as checking the store from now and then. And I'll leave you with that, and goodbye.